You hold the degrees. You possess the specialized skills. You solve complex problems no one else can handle. Yet, at the end of the month, you still count your expenses. While someone with half your talent drives a luxury car, you are not doing anything wrong. You are just playing by the rules society taught you. But your financial struggle does not come from a lack of genius. It happens because you know how to perfect a skill, but you do not know how to sell it. Without sales or leadership skills, your talent has zero negotiating power. You are forced to rent your brilliant mind at a massive discount to a boss who knows how to sell your work to the world. To stop being a replaceable gear and learn how to own the machine, look at the radical decision of this 22-year-old. You look down at the piece of paper resting in your hands. $42,000. For a 22-year-old who just walked out of the Maritime Academy, that is not merely a starting salary. It is a fortune. It is the ultimate finish line that millions of people spend their entire lives trying to cross. You are standing on the deck of a massive oil corporation tanker, holding what society considers a golden ticket. But as your fingers brush against the edge of the check, you do not feel a sense of pride or victory. Instead, a cold, heavy knot forms in the pit of your stomach. You turn your head slightly. Standing right next to you is Captain Richard. He is 55 years old, the absolute authority on this vessel. You watch quietly as his thick, weathered fingers peel back the foil of a pill pack. He pushes 2 heart medication tablets into his mouth and washes them down with a gulp of cold, bitter coffee. His eyes, staring out at the open horizon, are laced with red veins, the undeniable mark of chronic exhaustion and sleepless nights. Richard is at the absolute peak of his profession. His uniform is immaculate, his title commands immediate respect, and his paycheck is undoubtedly much larger than yours. Yet, as you watch him swallow those pills, you realize a terrifying truth. Richard does not drive this massive ship because he has a burning passion for the ocean. He drives it because he has absolutely no other choice. He is anchored down by 3 heavy mortgages back on land. He is chained to the college tuitions for his children and a growing stack of medical bills that demand payment every single month. That massive salary does not buy him freedom. It merely pays for his ongoing survival. It is an advance payment, keeping him locked in a cycle until his physical body simply gives out. Richard is a master of his craft. There is no one better at navigating a heavy tanker through a violent storm. But that is exactly the problem. He is a highly specialized gear in a giant corporate machine. If the company decides to lay him off tomorrow, what happens? All those decades of supreme, highly focused maritime skills become completely useless the moment his boots touch the pavement of the city. He knows how to do one thing perfectly, and that makes him entirely dependent on the people who need that one thing done. You look back down at your own paycheck. The illusion shatters. It is no longer a reward. It is a binding contract. Today, it is $42,000. In 10 years, it might be $100,000. And in 30 years, you will be the 55-year-old man swallowing heart pills just to survive another shift. You fold the paper in half. You slide it into your pocket. You have made your decision. That evening, the dining room is quiet. The warm light from the overhead lamp casts long shadows across the table. You slide a crisp, white envelope across the polished wood. Your resignation letter. Mr. Mark picks it up. His eyes scan the few short lines of text. When he looks up at you, there is no shouting. There is no slamming of fists on the table. Instead, his face is etched with a profound, heavy worry. He is a man of intellect, a caring father who has spent his entire life playing by the rules, building a safety net piece by piece to protect his family. "What are you thinking, Leo?" he asks, his voice steady but thick with genuine concern. "A $42,000 salary right out of school. You work 7 months and you get 5 months off. You have top-tier health insurance. You are in a system that guarantees your future." He taps the letter gently with his index finger. "Do you have any idea how many people out there would love to have this job? Millions of people are scraping by, praying for a fraction of the security you have right now. Why would you suddenly quit?" You look at him across the table. You do not argue. You do not raise your voice in rebellion. Every single word he just said makes perfect, undeniable sense. Within the framework of a man who works to earn a living, his logic is flawless. He is looking at the world through the lens of protection. To him, a steady job is a shield against poverty, and specialization is the iron that makes the shield stronger. He genuinely loves you, and he is simply trying to stop you from making a catastrophic mistake. But he did not see Captain Richard's bloodshot eyes this morning. He does not understand the terrifying vulnerability of being an employee who only knows how to do one specific job. You realize that explaining this to him is impossible. You are playing 2 entirely different games. He is playing to secure a safe corner on the board. You are leaving to learn how the board is built. You offer a small, understanding nod, leaving the letter on the table. You walk to your room and begin packing your bags. You are walking away from the highest salary you have ever seen, not because you do not need money, but because you absolutely refuse to let a specialized paycheck turn you into a captive. You walk into Mr. Julian's office, your foster father, carrying a thick, leather-bound folder. Inside it rests your maritime officer's certificate, an impeccable document that proves you have survived rigorous academic training, intense physical conditioning, and complex examinations. It is a piece of paper that guarantees you a place in the upper echelon of the working class. You place it on the heavy wooden desk and slide it toward him. You are looking for a management position. You have just walked away from a guaranteed salary of $42,000 a year, and you believe your credentials entitle you to start at a high level. You expect Julian to open the folder, nod in approval, and hand you a respectable title. Julian barely glances at the leather folder. He does not open it. He does not ask about your grades or your sea hours. Instead, he extends his arm and casually pushes your prestigious certificate to the far corner of his desk, treating it with the same indifference one might give to a discarded newspaper. He then reaches down, picks up a thick, heavy stack of glossy paper, and drops it directly in front of you. You look down. They are advertising leaflets, brochures for a standard office photocopier. "This degree will not help you here," Julian says, his voice entirely flat, devoid of any sympathy or admiration. He taps his index finger against the stack of cheap glossy paper. "Tomorrow morning, you are going to take this stack of leaflets, and you are going to walk down to the commercial district. You are going to knock on the door of every single company you see. You will pitch this product to absolute strangers." You stare at the brochures. A cold wave of disbelief washes over you. Door-to-door sales. In the hierarchy of an educated mind, this is the absolute bottom of the professional food chain. It is a job for those who have no options left, not for a highly trained officer. Julian leans back in his chair, reading the resistance on your face. "Do not worry about whether you actually sell a machine or not. Bringing in money is not your goal right now. Your job tomorrow is to get used to being yelled at. Your job is to learn how to stand there while someone slams a door in your face, and to do it without your ego shattering." The next morning, you step onto the harsh concrete of the business district. The reality of the street immediately crushes the theoretical safety of the classroom. You are wearing a stiff business suit. Your briefcase is packed with leaflets, feeling heavier with every step you take. You approach your first office building. You pull down the cuffs of your jacket, clear your throat, and push open the glass door. You walk up to the front desk with the rigid, perfectly straight posture of a ship's officer giving a report. When the receptionist looks up, you begin your pitch. You use formal, complex vocabulary. You speak in long, structured sentences about mechanical optimization, theoretical efficiency, and the technical specifications of the photocopier. You sound exactly like a man who has spent years in an academy learning how to sound intelligent. The receptionist does not look impressed. She looks incredibly annoyed. Before you can even finish your third sentence, she picks up a telephone. Less than a minute later, a large security guard approaches you from behind. He places a heavy hand on your shoulder, turns you around, and escorts you out of the lobby. You are chased away like a common loiterer. You stand on the sidewalk, your heart hammering against your ribs. You swallow hard, grip the handle of your briefcase, and force yourself to walk into the next building. The result is identical. A business owner steps out of his office, takes one brief look at the leaflet in your hand, waves you off dismissively, and tells you to get out before he calls the police. Door after door, office after office, the pattern repeats itself with brutal consistency. You are an educated man. You passed difficult exams. You commanded respect from crew members on a massive ocean vessel. But out here, on the pavement, your degrees mean absolutely nothing. You are nothing but a nuisance interrupting their day. The rejection feels physical, like a sharp slap across the face. You feel your cheeks burn with deep, overwhelming humiliation. You sweat through your cotton shirt. Your knuckles turn pale white from gripping your briefcase so tightly to keep your hands from trembling. 1 week passes, then 2 weeks, then 3. You walk for miles until the soles of your shoes begin to wear thin. At the end of your first 30 days, you sit on a public bench and tally up your results. You have knocked on hundreds of doors. You have endured countless insults, dismissive eye rolls, and outright hostility. You have sold exactly 0 photocopiers. The humiliation is absolute. Your ego is bruised, battered, and bleeding out. You stare at the remaining stack of leaflets and a suffocating desire to quit washes over you. You want to run back to the safety of a guaranteed paycheck. You want to retreat to a system where your diploma forces people to treat you with artificial respect. The following morning, you return to Julian's office. You look exhausted. You place the unsold stack of brochures back onto his desk. You expect him to tell you that you are entirely unsuited for business. You wait for him to validate your failure. Julian does not offer an ounce of pity. He looks at your slumped shoulders and listens to your complaints about how rude the business owners were, how terrible the market is, and how nobody wants to buy. You cannot sell, Julian says bluntly, cutting through your elaborate excuses. And do you want to know why? Because you speak with the massive, fragile ego of a highly educated person. You look up, instantly defensive. Julian leans forward, resting his forearms on the desk. When you walk into those offices, you are secretly demanding respect simply because you went to school. You are using big, complicated words to prove to them how smart you are. Customers do not have the time to listen to you show off your academic vocabulary. They are trying to survive in business. They only want to know one very simple thing. What can this machine do for them? Will it save them money? Will it fix their problem? He pushes the stack of leaflets back across the desk toward you. Your education is suffocating you. Julian continues, his voice completely level. It has made you arrogant, and the free market brutally punishes arrogance. Put aside your pride. Strip away your ego. A professional sells by listening, not by lecturing. You need to learn how to speak the language of the person sitting across from you. You need to learn how to persuade others by understanding their pain. That ability to connect, to swallow your pride, and offer real value is the only thing that will help you survive. 4 years pass. You are no longer the sweating, trembling kid freezing on the sidewalk with a briefcase full of ignored brochures. You have walked through thousands of doors. You have heard the word no so many times it has completely lost its power over you. Rejection is no longer a physical blow. It is just a routine bump on the road to a yes. You are now ranked in the top 5 of the entire sales force at the corporation. You know exactly how to read a room, how to listen to a client's actual problem, and how to close a massive deal. The commissions are rolling in. Your bank account is heavy. It is a typical morning when you walk into the regional manager's office. You place a single sheet of paper on his desk. He reads it, takes off his glasses, and rubs the bridge of his nose. Leo, what is this? You just had your best quarter. You are pulling in serious money right now. I am resigning, you say simply. The manager leans forward. He thinks this is a negotiation. He assumes you are playing a game that everyone plays when they want a bigger slice of the pie. Listen to me, he says, lowering his voice to a confidential tone. I can get you a 50% raise on your base salary. I will bump your commission rate on the top enterprise accounts. Nobody walks away from this kind of cash. You look at the offer he is laying out, a 50% raise. A few years ago, that would have sounded like winning the lottery. Now, it just sounds like a very comfortable pair of handcuffs. You shake your head. No, thank you. I am done. You do not try to explain it to him. He thinks you are crazy, just like your father thought you were crazy for leaving the oil company. But your logic is completely practical and entirely grounded in reality. You did not take this job to sell photocopiers for the rest of your life. You took this job to acquire one specific skill, the ability to sell and to conquer the fear of rejection. You have mastered that skill. The lesson is officially over. If you stay in that office for one more day, you are no longer working to learn. You are working strictly for the money. You would become just another well-paid employee trading hours for dollars, terrified of losing a fat paycheck. You pack up your desk, leave the money on the table, and walk out the door. Your next move has absolutely nothing to do with corporate sales. You trade your tailored business suit for heavy boots. You join the military, stepping into a harsh, unforgiving world where the daily stakes are not about missing a monthly sales quota, but about actual survival. You are assigned as a team leader. You stand in the dirt, staring down at your new squad. They are a group of tough, unruly, battle-hardened men. They have dirt under their fingernails and calluses on their knuckles. You might be the commanding officer on paper, but within 5 minutes, you realize a terrifying truth. Almost every single person in this squad is far more skilled than you are. They know the terrain better. They handle the equipment better. They are faster, stronger, and completely unimpressed by the shiny new rank on your collar. During your first few weeks, it is a complete disaster. You try to rely on your formal authority. You give direct orders, expecting immediate compliance. Instead, you get slow, dragging boots. You get silent mockery. They follow your commands just enough to avoid punishment, but they do not respect you. You are failing terribly as a leader. One night, sitting alone in the barracks, you remember a conversation with Julian. You can hear his rough, practical voice cutting through the noise in your head. Selling brings the cash through the front door, Julian had said, tapping his heavy finger on his desk. But knowing how to manage people is the only thing that keeps the entire company from collapsing on your head. If you just stick to your own specialty, if you try to be the smartest guy in the room, sooner or later you will be completely outmaneuvered by your own employees. They will see right through you. You realize he was right. You cannot sell your way out of this situation. You cannot use your education or your past success to force these men to follow you. If you cannot manage people who are smarter and tougher than you, any future business you build will shatter from the inside out. The next morning, everything changes. You stop barking orders from the front line. You grit your teeth, swallow your pride, and step down into the mud with them. When there is heavy lifting to be done, you pick up the heaviest load. You stop talking and start listening to their experience. You ask them for their input on tactical decisions. You let the experts do what they do best, and you focus entirely on keeping the team moving in the exact same direction. Slowly, the atmosphere shifts. The silent mockery stops. You win them over and earn their trust, not by being the most skilled soldier, but by being a humble leader who understands how to orchestrate the talents of others. You are no longer just a salesperson. You are finally learning how to build and maintain the engine of a machine. You are exactly 30 years old. The perspective from this side of the desk is completely different. You are no longer the 22-year-old kid standing on the deck of a massive oil tanker, staring at a corporate paycheck with a knot of anxiety in your stomach. You are no longer the terrified rookie standing on a wet sidewalk, begging annoyed receptionists for 5 minutes of their time. Today, you are the person who signs the front of the paychecks, not the back. You have built a company from absolutely nothing. You did not achieve this by being the smartest person in the room, nor by possessing a flawless academic record. You built this machine by combining the practical ability to sell with the hard-earned ability to manage and lead people. Now, you have a machine that generates cash flow, but a machine only runs smoothly if you put the exact right pieces into it. Right now, you are looking for a key piece. You need a communications director. You need someone who knows how to craft a compelling message. Someone who can take the core value of your business and translate it into a language that the market understands. You have spent the last 3 days conducting interviews, sifting through stacks of resumes, looking for the right mind to join your executive team. The glass door opens, and Chloe walks into your office. She is 26 years old. She sits down in the chair across from you, keeping her posture perfectly straight and her chin tilted slightly upward. She is dressed in a crisp, conservative silk blouse and a tailored blazer. She carries an undeniable aura of academic superiority. She hands you her leather portfolio. You open it and begin to read through the professional writing test she submitted the afternoon prior. You read the first page, and then the second. It is completely flawless. The structure of her sentences, the vastness of her vocabulary, the emotional pull of her narrative, it is the work of an absolute master. She holds a Master of Arts degree from a highly prestigious university, and her talent is immediately obvious. She knows exactly how good she is, and she fully expects to be compensated for that level of expertise. She leans forward and lays out her terms with absolute confidence. She requests a starting salary of $95,000 a year. Furthermore, she outlines her environmental conditions. She wants a private office at the far end of the hallway, completely isolated from the noise and chaos of the main operational floor. She explains that she requires absolute silence so that she can focus entirely on her creativity without any disruptive distractions from the daily grind of the business. You close the leather folder and set it down on the desk. You look her directly in the eyes. You tell her that her work is undeniably brilliant. You tell her that you are completely willing to pay her the $95,000 she is asking for. Her expression softens just a fraction. She assumes the negotiation is finished and that she has won. But then you lean forward, resting your hands on the desk. I agree to the money, you say. But I have one mandatory condition. For your first 30 days here, you will not have a private office. You will not write a single press release or draft a single advertising campaign. Instead, I want you to go down to the ground floor and spend 4 solid weeks working directly alongside the outside sales team. I want you to walk the city streets with them. I want you to stand in the lobbies of our clients and listen to customers complain about our products. I want you to hear every piece of criticism, every harsh rejection, and every single objection straight from the mouths of the people who actually buy our services. The atmosphere in the room drops 10 degrees in a matter of seconds. The slight smile vanishes entirely from Chloe's face. A deep, visible frown forms on her forehead, and you can see the defensive walls immediately shooting up behind her eyes. She looks at you as if you have just insulted her entire existence and everything she stands for. She reaches across the desk and immediately begins gathering her files, pulling the portfolio back tightly against her chest. I spent 6 grueling years in a university, she says, her voice tight with indignation and offended pride. I earned my master's degree so that I could work as a highly specialized creative professional. I did not go through all of that rigorous academic training just to run around hawking products on the pavement like some desperate peddler. She zips her leather portfolio shut with a sharp, angry motion. The people in your sales department do what they do, because all they care about is money, she continues, her tone dripping with academic disdain. They are purely transactional. I am a writer. I do creative, intellectual work. I am not a salesperson, and I will not lower myself to do their job. You do not get angry. You do not raise your voice, and you do not judge her pride. You do not judge her because you remember having that exact same fragile pride when you were 22 years old, standing in the rain with a briefcase full of brochures, feeling humiliated by the world. You understand exactly why she is reacting this way. The school system taught her that specialization is noble and that selling is somehow dirty. You just look at her and ask a very simple, grounded, and practical question. Chloe, you say evenly, where do you honestly think the money comes from to pay the $95,000 salary you just demanded? She stops her movement. Her hand rests on the handle of her bag, but she does not provide an answer. Do you think that money simply generates itself out of thin air because your grammar is perfect? You ask. Do you think the payroll comes from the brilliantly written books and perfectly crafted advertisements that sit collecting dust in a storage room because nobody bought them? Or do you think that money comes directly from the revenue that the sales team, the people you just called greedy, actually manages to bring in through the front door? You point to the flawless writing test still sitting on the edge of the desk. You are an incredible writer. You could easily be the best writing author in this entire city. But the free market does not pay the best writing author. The market pays the best-selling author. If you do not understand the psychology of the buyer, if you do not understand why people actually open their wallets, all of your creative genius will sit in a vacuum. Chloe does not say another word. Her face is flushed red with a volatile mixture of anger, shock, and deeply wounded pride. She refuses to accept the reality you just placed in front of her. She pushes her chair back, turns around, and pushes the glass door open. She walks out of your office, her heels clicking sharply and rapidly against the hardwood floor as she marches out of the building. You do not call out to stop her. You sit back in your chair and look at the empty space across from you. The room is quiet again. You feel a genuine sense of regret, a heavy sigh escaping your chest. She is undeniably brilliant. She possesses a natural gift for language and communication that you could never replicate, no matter how many years you tried. But you also know, with absolute, terrifying certainty, exactly how the rest of her story is going to play out. She is going to spend the next 30 years jumping from one underpaid agency job to another. She will constantly complain to her friends that her creative genius is not recognized or valued by the market. She will struggle to pay her rent. She will stress over her grocery bills, and she will blame the unfair economy for her constant financial anxiety. She will remain a struggling artist forever, living paycheck to paycheck, simply because she stubbornly looks down on the one practical skill that bridges the gap between a great idea and actual wealth. She has the talent to conquer the world, but because she refuses to learn how to sell, she will spend her entire life working for people who do. A few years later, you drive across town to visit Mr. Mark. The house looks exactly the same as it always has, but as he opens the front door, you notice the gray creeping deeper into his hair and the tired lines settling more permanently around his eyes. Yet, when you walk into the living room, he greets you with a bright, genuinely hopeful energy. He walks over to his wooden desk, opens the top drawer, and carefully pulls out a crisp, heavy piece of paper. It is a brand new academic certificate, confirming that he has just successfully completed another intensive, highly specialized professional training course. He had spent countless late evenings studying for it after already working long, exhausting shifts at his job. I just got this in the mail today, he says, tapping the corner of the certificate with a proud smile. Next week, the labor union representative is going to take this directly to the board of directors. If everything goes according to plan, I am really hoping they will approve a 5% raise for me next year. You look at the piece of paper, and then you look back at his face. You do not criticize him. You do not feel a single ounce of judgment or superiority toward him. He is a good, incredibly hardworking man who is simply playing by the exact rules society taught him to follow. But as you stand there, a bitter, unavoidable truth settles heavily in your chest. Mark has worked relentlessly his entire life. He has constantly upgraded his formal education and dedicated his best years to becoming an absolute expert in his specific field. But because he only knows one incredibly narrow specialty, he has completely lost the ability to control his own financial destiny. He does not know how to sell a product. He does not know how to build a business system. His only leverage is his own hard labor. And because of that single limitation, a man of his age and immense intellect is forced to rely on a union to stand in front of a group of executives and essentially beg them to validate his worth. He is waiting for someone else's permission just to earn 5% more. You leave the house a short while later with a quiet heaviness. That afternoon, you stand by a large glass window in a high-rise office building, looking down at the city streets below. It is the evening rush hour. The avenues are completely gridlocked. Thousands of cars are packed together in endless rows of glowing red brake lights, inching forward at a painfully slow pace. Inside those vehicles are thousands of talented, highly educated professionals. They possess advanced degrees and specialized certifications. They are incredibly smart people, yet they are all trapped in the exact same routine. They are spending their days working exhausting hours just to earn enough cash to pay off last month's credit card debt, to cover the mortgage, and to simply keep their heads above water. We are always taught from a very young age that we have to go to work simply to earn money. But tomorrow morning, when you wake up, swipe your security badge, and walk into your company, take a moment to look around and ask yourself one very practical question. Are the skills you are using and learning today helping you figure out how to build and own the machine? Or are they just turning you into a slightly more expensive cog, a cog that will keep spinning for someone else until the day it breaks down and gets completely thrown away?